So welcome to another episode of the TVE podcast. Today I'm joined by Ricky Knox, founder of Tandem. Ricky, how's it going?
Really good. Great to be on air with you.
Thank you so much. So let's start off. What did you have for breakfast this morning?
That's a fine question. I had porridge for breakfast this morning. Okay. I cooked porridge for my daughters and with cinnamon and raisins.
Very nice. And what's the one thing you would have changed differently before you turned 20?
Would have done differently before I turned 20. Wow. I'm not sure. I quite enjoyed my time pre-20. But yeah, I think potentially I would have paid some vague attention to what I was going to do with the rest of my life, which I didn't really start thinking about until I was about 24.
Okay, nice. And what's your favourite company right now, apart from Tandem?
Good question. Comply Advantage, which is an investee company run by Charlie Dellingpole that is doing some awesome stuff in PEPs and sanctions checking. We were just discussing it today at Exco.
Oh, awesome. So for our audience who don't know anything about you, could you just summarise your career to date in 2 minutes?
Okay. Yeah, so super high level. After a stint in consulting and then venture capital, MBA at INSEAD, I've been starting companies. The sort of link that runs through the companies I've started is they've all involved technology. They're all in complex industries, telecoms and financial services most recently, and they're all trying to do a bit of good for the world. So a foreign exchange software business was stopping banks ripping people off of foreign exchange. A remittance company was helping immigrants send money home more cheaply to their home countries. Another one of those that was pure play digital, Azimo and Tandem, and a telco before that.
So your first fintech company was ClarityFX, which you managed to sell 14 months later.
Yeah.
What was it and how did that happen?
Yeah, so that was what I sort of call a closing door opportunity. What it was a business that designed software to help companies assess, analyze their banking trading, their FX trading records, and figure out whether their bank had been ripping them off, or at least taking more money than they should have been out of the relationship. So we would go in and run this backwards over people's trading records, and then take a percentage of the savings, which resulted in some pretty interesting and contract sizes, it was clearly creating millions and millions of pounds of value for some of these enterprises, and so we were able to sell the assets of the business, actually not the business itself, for a significant sum after only just under 18 months.
Are you able to disclose what you sold it for?
I can't, unfortunately, but
yeah.
I mean, the irony is there were a few lawsuits flying about at the time because we were annoying the bank significantly by taking big chunks out of their P&L. So that's why the corporate entity was dissolved and the assets were sold. But it's actually got a pretty hardcore NDA around it, the whole piece.
I bet. And later you then founded Azimo, and you were approached by Facebook, I believe.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Matt's not a huge fan of me talking about that. So first of all, in between those two, did Small Financial Services, which I just sold in January this year. At Azimo, we've actually had a whole series of approaches from a number of different players, including large tech players. Wouldn't comment as to whether it was particularly Facebook, and really, Azimo has rails that very easily help people move money from one part of the world to the other, and hundreds of thousands of cash payout points in the developing world, as well as access to anybody's bank account and mobile wallets, etc. For a tech company or a social network, obviously there's an attraction there of being able to move money over the information rails, so to speak. So obviously there was there were a number of interesting discussions with different technology businesses about that business.
And do you mean Mark Zuckerberg, or?
I'm not going to comment.
No. What's he like?
No comment, sorry.
No
Apologies.
Okay, well, let's move on to Tandem. What was the idea behind it originally? Because you went to Taipei once you sold your company for a year and a half?
No, it wasn't actually Taipei, although, funnily enough, I'm going to Taipei shortly. But no, I went to Bali. I went to Indonesia. Exactly right. So actually, after I stepped away from Azimo, which is still run by Mike Kent, who's my business partner, I've been promising my wife and kids they were going to see me from time to time. So we decided that me hanging out with the kids would be better done in a tropical island than in grey London, and so we headed over there. I actually was originally going to be a 3-month sabbatical, but then I realised I need to start writing the business plan for Tandem, and that's probably going to take 6 months to a year. So rather than doing that in wintry London, decided that we were enjoying Bali so much we'd stick around and do it there. So I actually hired a couple of people and started business planning and the application for a banking license from Bali, and then came back over here to finish it.
And how's Tandem going today?
Tandem's going very well. We had a longer than intended run through to getting a banking license, so really launched this year, but it's been a fantastic year. We've launched a whole series of banking products, so there's a delta between us and the sort of Monzos and Starlings of the world that are current account only. We've launched instant access savings accounts, credit cards, personal loans, mortgages, and fixed term savings accounts over the course of this year. So it's been a pretty busy time building the systems behind that. And we now offer what we consider to be a pretty exciting service for our customers in terms of helping them manage their money and not run out of money, optimize their finances on a day-to-day basis so that they understand how much they can spend and don't get out the rails on that. We also offer a savings coach, which is just launching at the moment, which is helping customers save and set money aside for other events. And there's a lot of new features and product coming next year. But ultimately, I'm pretty excited about where we've got to. As I said, nearly 500,000 customers coming right up.
And how do you keep that growth rate up, and how do you avoid the growth rate from tanking?
So growth rate is, growing a technology business is about sort of a combination of things. One, actually having a good product that actually solves problems for customers. Two, actually doing a good job of marketing that, because if you have a wonderful product but nobody knows about it, you don't go anywhere. And we also work with our customers to market our product. And then three, actually making sure your existing customers are happy. So try and focus on doing all those things, and that's how we prevent it from tanking, so to speak.
Great. And what are your biggest concerns right now in fintech?
In fintech, I mean, my personal bugbear is Brexit. I think one of the things that's enabled the UK to build such a vibrant fintech scene is the ability to attract engineers from right the way across Europe. I think London's got plenty of the fin, but maybe not quite enough of the tech talent homegrown. Not that we don't have English programmers here, we've quite a few, but we've already seen in the last 6 months quite a number of people within our tech team have just gone, look, I did think England was a welcoming place. I enjoyed England, but don't feel welcome here anymore. I'm going home, and that's tough when it's one of your great coders is one of the top performers in your team, and then they just decide to go home. So I mean, generally we'll keep working with them remotely for a while, but it's hard to make that work in the long term. And
is Brexit going to affect you guys, or?
So obviously there's different versions of the world in Brexit. A no-deal Brexit is, I strongly believe, absolute disaster for the UK economy, and will result in massively risen unemployment. Obviously the Bank of England's got projections on this and all the rest of it, but and therefore will drive through to where we lend as well as offer savings accounts, and will result in increased distress around repaying debt. So that would impact our business model, yeah.
And going back to the growth rate, you recently acquired Harrods Bank back in early this year. How did that come about?
It's an interesting one because it was we were approached actually by a cold call, and I think when we first looked at the opportunity, we weren't quite sure whether it was whether it was an obvious fit. I think what came to pass was actually Harrods Bank was at a difficult juncture where it didn't have the systems to support its go forward plan, and we had both systems but not a lot of business, and actually Harrods also had quite a lot of capital in the business. So by buying it with Tandem's equity, we essentially raised a significant amount of finance, as well as getting a book of customers who've been extraordinarily helpful and been great Tandem customers. Almost about 60 to 70% of them are renewing their products when they come up for a renewal, whether that's their mortgages or their fixed term savings accounts. So very happy to serve those guys as well.
Great, and you've raised over $150 million to date.
Yeah.
How have you done it?
Helped by the fact that I've done a few things before. So I think there's sort of two factors. One is, obviously I've got a track record of some sort of actually delivering business value for investors. But additionally, I think the space that we're in is a super exciting one, and I think it's proving out now. I think earlier on in the journey, people were less sure about whether digital banking was going to be a thing or not a thing. I think everyone's pretty clear right now that it is a thing. So yeah, it's getting easier.
And do you think at some point most of the high street banks will go in terms of personal accounts?
Ooh, I mean, when you say "will go," you mean will be destroyed, or you mean will follow?
They won't be offering current accounts anymore. You guys have got
I don't think it's as clear cut as that. So I mean, if you look at retail, which obviously is an area where there's been disruption going on for years and years. You've got some new giants, Amazon, but it still doesn't own 90% of the UK retail market. It just owns a huge chunk of the online retail market. However, there are sort of in the retailers, there are some like House of Fraser, which we talked to, who've had challenges recently. There are some that have gone bust altogether and disappeared from the high street, Woolworths, etc. And there are others that have adapted well. I mean, John Lewis actually do a really good job online. So I think you'll see the same thing with the banks, which is some people retrench from current accounts and look at falling back on their payments expertise or their wholesale market expertise. Others will focus in on corporates. But I think there are some that will adapt and will play in the new arena. I think it's definitely a challenging time for them.
And what's the future of you? Are you planning to go to Asia? You just raised £15 million from an Asian private equity fund.
Yeah.
Is that the plan, Asia?
Yeah, so I think, both Europe and Asia, to be honest, but looks like Asia first for us. And I think we're pretty excited. There's an awful lot happening in that part of the world, but actually outside China, where there's quite a mature sort of, I wouldn't say a mature digital banking sector, but a route through, from chat to payments, to banking, which in particular WeChat through WeBank have really done a great job of, and even for Alibaba to Alipay, you've seen some really good product extension. But in other markets, there's massive mobile penetration, massively rapidly growing smartphone penetration, and actually pretty poor banking provision. So there's quite a lot of exciting markets in Asia.
I'm sure getting to this stage, it hasn't come out with some challenges. What's been the biggest challenge for you personally and for the business?
Biggest challenge or toughest day, I would say, was we had a deal with House of Fraser that went away. And actually at the time that was sort of in breach of already signed contracts. So that was a difficult day. But ultimately. The good thing is, having done this loads of times, is you faced tough times before, and so that don't panic, just get out there, work twice as hard and make it happen. Because if you back down, give up, mentally, then yeah, absolutely, you will go bust, and the thing will go the wrong way. But if you if you've got the resilience to carry on, then you can normally make something happen.
And you've got all these successful companies. How have you done that? Where's the drive come from?
Well, I mean, look, a successful company is a combination of picking the right horses. And, I wouldn't say I've always picked the perfect horses, but I think we've got a pretty good horse right now with Tandem in the right market opportunity that's happening at the right time. So there's a big strategic component about thinking up front about, what the business opportunity is. And obviously having done VC beforehand, that was super, super helpful because, pattern recognition, understanding, what a good market opportunity looks like versus a bad one, understanding, what the drivers of success in that segment are going to be. But then there's also a big part about execution. And for me, execution is mainly about teams. It's about building teams. It's about attracting the right people. It's about inspiring them to work hard and deliver for you, and making sure you have the right combination of people. We've got a great team here at Tandem, right culture to actually make those guys happy and enjoy what they do, and right purpose in terms of actually, what is the company trying to do, and can people get on board with that, or actually are you just here to make yourself rich, in which case I think it's a bit more challenging to get everyone to rally around that. Rally around Ricky's yacht. No, no, I'll never have a yacht. No.
Too expensive.
I've already sold a couple of businesses. No, nothing too expensive, just too flashy, and not anything I'm particularly excited about. I'm very happy to rent a yacht for the weekend if I want to go somewhere. But yeah, they're sort of vanity purchase.
Great. And my last couple of questions. I was actually with former CEO of Google last night, Eric Schmidt.
Oh, cool. I met him.
Okay, nice. And he was talking about how can big corporations help those people who don't have a huge amount of money. Can they give 10% of their salary to add on to their pods? Is there a way Tandem can help people in Africa who don't have access to any form of financial service?
I mean, yes. There's kind of two different things. I mean, obviously, Azimo, and Small World quite directly helping, families in Africa, and allowing their relations to and friends to send money to them very cheaply, and hence bring funding to some of the more needy populations in the world. I think from a Tandem perspective, there's a smartphone penetration wave that's following through right now that hasn't really. It's kicking off in Africa in a big way, but it's not as mass market as would be required. So the first wave, which I was pretty connected into, not only is Azimo and Small World terminating M-Pesa, but actually my telecoms business manages Safaricom's mobile network. So we knew the guys behind M-Pesa reasonably well. It was our direct client. He managed the Kenyan network at the time. And Michael Joseph. And so I think the challenge there is right now you're in a position where most people are using text, and so these systems are fairly limited. I think there is going to be another wave of innovation, which will be much more suited to some of the more better UX, customer experience stuff that Tandem's working on. It'll probably be a few years before the smartphone penetration gets to the necessary levels. But I think when it does, there's definitely opportunity for us to step in. We're already talking to. I've got a lot of connections in the African continent, and to the extent we can actually go and roll out, and particularly some of the smart stuff we're doing around machine learning, using data patterns to analyze and get traction on credit score and KYC and all this other stuff that actually. In the UK, you've got bureaus that do it not very well, but you've got bureaus that do something. In Africa, you've got nothing. And so, there's some really smart stuff going on right now. And through a mid-year network, one of our investors, and Axion, who's an investor in Azimo, got quite a lot of connections into these businesses that are even using telephone records to drive credit assessment, etc. And obviously that ability allows you to go and provide credit where it's needed, and often it at a super micro level, providing small amounts of credit, not large amounts of credit into some of those situations can get people out of the poverty trap, can allow people to get the tools that they need to do work, and and can make a massive difference in the development of those economies.
And of course, you have a couple of competitors, Monzo, Revolut. Do you talk to those founders, or are you on quite good terms with them, or do you?
Yeah, no, I'm on super good terms with Tom. Tom and I, it's in the press before, but when he broke away from Starling, we helped him a bit with his business planning, helped him pull together some of the, some of the applications. Still meet up with him for beers. Doing an incredible job. Tons of respect for him. Nikolai is a slightly less cuddly character, although I do see him quite regularly at conferences, etc. No reason to like or dislike him because I've not interacted enough. But no, he's definitely not. He's definitely not a regular drinking partner.
Not yet.
We'll see.
And what is the grand plan for you and Tandem? Do you want to take it to 1 million users, 20 million users?
Yeah, I think there's there's obviously there's a one country business plan, sort of UK, which is heading, in the UK you're unlikely to get much north of 10 million users because, even if every adult in the UK had a Tandem account, it would be 45 million users, and actually that will happen over time that you might access that, but right now there are some people who desperately want a branch and then might not be appropriate for Tandem today. However, if you take that and then multiply that across, the whole of Europe, if you multiply that across a number of Asian geographies, you're definitely getting to, hundreds of millions of users. Tom had a lovely expression, when to get to 1 billion users. I can't really make the math work on that one, but it's a nice statement of intent.
And do you think you're the right CEO to make it to the next level? So 20 million users, 100 million users?
Yeah, that's a good question. I always ask that question all the way through. I'm actually brought in a CEO to start this business. I'm definitely not precious about being CEO. It's got some upsides and lots of downsides. But definitely for where Tandem is right now and for the next 5 years, yeah, absolutely the right guy to build that business. When it becomes a massive global banking franchise, whether that requires a different set of skills to keep the even keel and all the rest of it, then could well be, but we'll see.
Are you one step ahead of the curve? Are you focusing more on Asia now and leaving your competitors to focus on UK?
It's a very good question. No, look, I think we're still focused on the UK. It's our home market. We're based here. We're going to do lots of exciting stuff here in the next year or two. I would say that we definitely have a keen focus on international expansion. You'll see that, through next year. We just think that, and it's less about the UK or leaving active competitors or whatever it is. I think, Monzo's talking about going to the US. Starling's, Starling's not talking about it, but N26 is, already across Europe and looking at the US as well. Revolut's talking about the US. I think I'm half American. I know the US market very well. I've already expanded a business into there. Small World grew into the US, but more than half its revenue, has to be said, about 10% of its profit. But the there's a lot of challenges in the US. The regulator is pretty strict. There are a lot of very keen competitors in the US. Structurally, the market is very different. There's tens of thousands of banks in the US, so there's actually much more competitive diversity and some decent players there in different areas. So I think it's a very different market to crack. I'm not the one that I'm most enthusiastic about cracking. Not to say that we wouldn't go to the US, we would, but I think it would probably not be our first port call.
Awesome. And my final question: what piece of advice would you give to an entrepreneur?
I suppose in line with what I was talking about there. I suppose it's a combination of two things. It's sort of do persist, but also have a realistic view of where you want to get by when, and because persisting at the wrong opportunity at the wrong time when it becomes increasingly obvious, so that's the sort of fail fast piece, and if necessary pivot, go and do something else, even go and do a completely different business, but keep at it. It's not an easy career choice. It's incredibly hard work, sacrifice a lot in other parts of your life as well. But it can be very rewarding if you get it right.
Very cool. Well, how can our users find out more about you? If they want to sign up?
Sure, happy. Well, first of all, can sign up at tandem.co.uk, but if they want to find out more about me in particular, check out my LinkedIn profile. Actually, pretty much Google me. You can go and watch a ton of videos, knock yourself out, and me talking about everything from GDPR to on YouTube as well. There's a load of stuff. So anything people are interested, check out. And always happy to meet people as well. We've got regular events at Tandem. Come along. I'm normally there. Also do a bit of speaking, so you can Google that as well. I'm on stage from time to time.
Awesome, exciting times ahead. Thank you so much and good luck.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.